Hello, everybody. It's 10:30 p.m. Central Time on the 10th of March, 2023. It's Friday here in the United States. Hope you're doing well, and I've got a new microphone, so I hope everything sounds okay. I'll be listening back to this after we do this. I'm recording now live on Twitch, but we'll upload it to YouTube. I'll listen back to it, make sure it sounds okay. Again, if it doesn't sound good, I apologize. It is what it is. I can't really hear it while I'm live. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and turn on a display capture so that you can see what I see ever so slightly better. Here we are on the Earthquake 3D live stream. If you don't have the program, I don't get anything for recommending it. I do recommend that you use something like it so that you can plot out multiple earthquakes from multiple agencies. We're looking at about 48 hours worth of earthquakes here, and the deep earthquakes, the ones that are deep down into the earth, are raised high off the globe so that you can see them easily. And then, of course, the rings show us the size of the quakes. So we got 5s and 4s spread out across the West Pacific. But what I'd like to make note of is the spread of the same-sized earthquakes going out across multiple regions, right down to a hair of a point of one another. 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. Going out across all the way over to Indonesia, all the way up to Japan, and of course back down to where all of our deep earthquakes are. Now these deep earthquakes are taking place along an area, areas called plate boundaries. These are areas where plates meet up. We get a bunch of deep earthquakes that take place down below the plates, and then that comes up through the plate boundary, through the cracks between the plates. These red lines, for instance, are the boundaries between plates. Between the Indo-Australian plate and the Pacific, for instance, and then coming up through here, we see shallower, noteworthy earthquake activity. We get deep 4s, for instance, and then next to it, we see shallow 5s. We can see deep 5s, which then we see shallow 6s, and it goes upwards from there. Right now, we're dealing with mid-range 5s going all the way across the board. The way to look at this is that the entire area, from over at Indonesia, up to Japan, back down to Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands, has all moved in about a day on the same basis. And then you start to understand the size of the area that's moving. Now here's our key down here in the lower left-hand corner of the USGS page. 1,000 miles, right? So 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and then going about at 4,000 up to the north, or maybe even more. This whole area has a massive amount of movement going on down below it, and then coming up from it. That's what we're seeing now. Now, all that being said, I think we're going to take the next step up. We're going to go a magnitude higher than where we are now, based upon the amount of deep earthquake activity, putting new energy hammering into the tank. Now, think of the deep earthquakes like this, what's on the screen, where there's a wave deep down below in the earth, or in the magma down below the plates, and it comes up into the underside of the plate. The combined force of thousands of miles of very low frequency, ultra low frequency, I don't know which, focuses in on itself and up into the plate in a singularity. We get a hammering, spiking action of an earthquake down below. That then hammers up, out, and away, and it creates a series of hammering actions, which then get put into the storage tank of energy, and the storage tank of energy goes back to this, the red line plate boundary map. So we're hammering in down below, and then up comes this wave that spreads out thousands of miles in all directions. Think of each one of these like a 5.1 or 5.2 or 5.3, dropping off all the way along the way. Equally spaced somewhat throughout the tank here in the laboratory, but the same thing happens on Mother Nature, spreads out across the tank. Now it's an uneven tank, but we still see it. We see the standing wave spread out away from where the hammering action originates. Okay, so that's an update just as what's going on, how it works, and then you can see spreading out and away from our deep earthquakes, for instance, down to New Zealand. Now I have a warning going on the North Island of New Zealand right here from Wellington north to the Bay of Plenty, and we call this the catcher's mitt position in North New Zealand. It's on the plate boundary. We'll go back to the plate boundary map one more time. Coming up from New Zealand, you can follow the red line up to where our deep earthquakes are. Now that catcher's mitt position here catches the energy coming down from the north, that wave this wave here. Imagine this spread out across thousands of miles of the plate boundary, and then it comes rolling down into this, where it makes a hard bend across the north part of the South Island of New Zealand. That's the Cook Strait and Kaikoura. So I've got a warning going right up here where we're catching the wave coming in, and it's going to be making the bend down to the south. It will carry on, and we'll see a new earthquake down here as well, down where the plate boundary meets into Antarctica. Okay, so New Zealand, your warning still stands up to 5.5, and it hasn't hit yet. Obviously, we've got 3s down to the south on the Cook Strait. We got 4s up to the north. What's halfway between the 3s down to the south and the 4s up to the north? Wait for it. 4 up to the north here, 4.8 deep. 3s down to the south, and the halfway point, if we go around the bend of the plate, brings us in right up here on the north side of the thumb of the catcher's mitt position at New Zealand. That's the exact halfway point. But I've got a warning going on the North Island because, obviously, that's where the people are. Okay, over to the west. See where all 3 sets of rings overlap here on Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea? There's going to be a new event there, bigger than all 3 combined. Think of these, if you just added those together, that would equal about a 5.3. But I think we're taking the next step up, 1 magnitude up, which puts us to 6.3. So we should see a new 6.3 here as well. As well as where? As well as over here, we're going 1 step higher. We're going to find the halfway point between the 5.3 at Sumatra and all the way over here to this 4.3 over in eastern Indonesia. And we go around the bend of the plate, and it brings us in right here on Java, eastern Java. Mount Krakatau just appeared back on the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center list. Let's go get that open really quick. Nevado del Ruiz volcano. Oh, it's 6 hours ago. Let me refresh this. Hold on. Okay, there it is. Mount Krakatau, Chivaluche, Fuego, and Nevado del Ruiz volcano down in Colombia. Krakatau, these are only small blasts, so this one's like 5,000 feet high. It's not that big at all. Considering Krakatau has got a 2,000-foot high summit, it's only going a few thousand feet above that. But, I mean, look at it. It's on the list, and let me show you where it is. Right here, in the strait between Sumatra and Java. Now a new 5.3 pops off next to it up to the northwest on this. Go back to the USGS map. Go back over to where the red earthquake is. That's the new 5.3. So, one more time. Indo-Australian plate boundary, deep earthquakes down below it. Spread of same-sized earthquakes going out and away from it, and we're going to take the next step up in magnitudes. So the wave that's in this tank is about to go a little bit bigger. Take a look at the wave height. As it reflects back into itself, it pumps up more energy. As you're pushing in from one end or the other, or both ends could push in and pump up this tank, that the wave height increases. Well, the intensity, the amplitude. Well, you could also think of it as just the magnitude. The magnitude of each of these waves is increasing. Now I can park my mouse over the middle of the wave. Let's do that. Park my mouse over the middle of the wave, and watch, the next peak comes in and touches the middle of the empty part, the trough. The bottom of the wave is filled in by the next wave's peak. Perfectly, the middle point is filled in. I don't even have to move my mouse. So in other words, this wave moves forward and fills in this middle point. This wave moves forward and fills in this point. Gets down to this end on the right side, reflects back into itself. Pumps the energy back in towards the other end. Meanwhile, the other end is pumping more energy in, and we're pumping in with deep earthquakes. So, let's go up to the north. We've already talked about Sumatra. Japan. On the coast of Japan, same-sized activity, 5.2 to 5.3. Where did it occur? We have to go back to the USGS map. Check it out again. The red line map. Up to the north now. 5.3 at the H-shape plate boundary just south of Tokyo. Now, today is the 11th internationally. We're already in the 11th. If you look down at the bottom of the screen, it says March 11, 2023, UTC time. We are at 4:39. Okay, in about an hour, I'm pretty sure about 1 hour from now, we will be at the exact point, 12-year anniversary of the Japan megaquake back on the 11th, March 11th of 2011. 12-year anniversary today, and it happened right in here on the coast of Japan. 9.0 earthquake. It was huge. It caused tsunami. Fukushima nuclear reactor went into meltdown. It was a real big deal 12 years ago. And I'm pretty sure it was 5:46 UTC time that it took place. Okay, so just remember that moment. It was my first earthquake forecast on the 9th, 2 days before the Japan megaquake was my first ever earthquake forecast. And it was primitive. I was warning for a larger earthquake. Larger than what? On the 9th, a 7.2 struck right down at the H-shaped plate boundary down here by Tokyo. A 7.2 struck on March 9th, 2011. Prompted me to make a video, and then when I made my video, I saw, and everybody else did too, but apparently I was the only one to make a video on it, that there was a progression of earthquakes that was beginning from where that 7 happened, the 7 that created like a 1-foot-high tsunami that came into Tokyo Harbor there, that a progression of earthquakes of 4s and 5s, hundreds of them, was going up to the north, spreading out and away from the original 7.2. You couldn't call them aftershocks, kind of like over in Turkey, where you can't really call them aftershocks. They're spreading out and away by hundreds of miles from the original earthquake. So, the original break. So, in 7.2 earthquake struck here on the 9th, I made my video saying watch for a larger earthquake than the 7.2. And it looked like it was going to happen up here to the north. And what happened? 2 days later, the 9.0 broke to the north. Now, when I made my video on the 9th, people said I was trying to scare the people in Japan and that there was no way you could know if a bigger earthquake was coming. That was what was said to me. 2 days later, they called me a wizard. Latvian news came out and called me some like magical wizard or something. I was like, you got to be kidding me. It's not magic. What it was a progression of earthquakes that going from the 7 up to the north, and it looked like something bigger was going to break because it was spreading. Anyway, that was the start of earthquake forecasting for me, and here we are now. So, middle points get hit between the earthquakes. So this means the coast of Japan, south of where the big one happened 12 years ago, but north of Tokyo. So that kind of puts us just north of the Tokyo area. Is that the Ibaki prefecture? It's south of the Fukushima prefecture and south of Hokkaido for sure. So that would put us somewhere right in here, just south of where the big one happened 12 years ago. Now the magnitude on this should go as high as 5.9. And I hope I got the magnitude on this right. I'm basing it on our deep earthquakes and our 5s going around the rest of the planet. And then we're looking for 6s to pop off back here, in between here, 6.3, and another 6.3, where all 3 sets of these rings overlap on the West Pacific. If you're in Japan, watch out for it, though. If a 6 strikes on land, it'll matter. I think it'll be out in the ocean. So it should be out on the plate boundary. Let me show you where. Should be out here. If a 6 strikes out here, it usually doesn't cause that much issue on land at all. If it strikes on land in Tokyo, it'll be a big deal. I'm trying to get it within 200 miles. And you see our key down here in the lower left-hand corner for the USGS measurements there. 50 miles, 150. I mean, we're about 200 miles off the coast. So I'm trying to get it within 200 miles. If it strikes in Tokyo, I apologize. I think it's going to strike out on the plate boundary out in the ocean. Now, we do have to talk about this, a lack of earthquakes across Myanmar, China, Russia, Siberia, the whole area. Completely radio silent when it comes to seismic activity. And that's 2 days of silence. Let's go back 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. So what is it? Are we not getting the earthquakes reported out of China? I mean, it could be. I mean, what do you call it? Like World War III? I mean, not really, but I mean, and people are not friendly towards each other right now for some reason. Anyway, we're going to watch in the middle here. We're going to watch on the Myanmar side of the border. This is India to the west, Myanmar to the south, China to the northeast. And let me show you on the USGS map what's really there. Here it is, the bend in the plate, Indo-Australian plate again, going over to the west. Right there at the bend is where we watch, for 2 reasons. One, that wave that I was showing you in the tank is spreading out across all these red lines. coming up, out and away, and spreading out, up and around. And it's going to follow this like it's a tank, like it's a wave tank. So it's going to make a hard bend around the curve of the wave tank. And where it makes the bend, it also reflects back into itself. One more time. Imagine this wave going around a curved tank. Really steep curve, a big S or U-shaped bend curved tank. The wave would go down, hit the curve, and at the curve, some of the wave will be reflected back into itself. And when the wave gets reflected back into itself, guess what happens? The wave peaks go up. Or the amplitude increases. Anyway, where the reflection goes back into itself, that's where we watch for the new break to take place. And the break will be bigger than anything that's on all sides now because the waves are combining. So on one side, we've got a bunch of 4s. On the other side, we've got a 5. This means something like a mid-range 5 or greater should strike at the middle, at the reflection point, right here. Then the wave will progress, and the next spot will get hit. The next middle point will be hit. That will be at the Nepal, India, China border. And then the wave will spread again. And the middle point will be hit at the middle open point. That's Iran. And then the wave will hit Turkey. And this is the wild card, so to speak. It already broke. Turkey broke. The surface fissure fracture formed 200 miles or more, going back up across from the coast of Turkey, back up into the border of Iran, basically. Now, I don't know how far the crack in the ground went. I know it went 200 miles, but that's more than 200 miles, by the way, over to the Iran border. The earthquakes progress across that area and back many times. Now, last week, I struck out on my warning. I warned for up to a 7, 6.9 to 7, instead of 5.6 to 5.9 hit. Turkish agency has it at 5.6 to 5.7. It knocked down buildings and caused major damage, and it was at about 80 to 90 mile away from the original 7s. So it's not an aftershock. You can't call earthquakes at new locations 90 miles away 3 weeks later aftershocks. Aftershocks are aftershocks at the location that broke. This would be called a new fracture that happened somewhere else along the fault, which is breaking apart. And that's different than an aftershock. It means the fault is breaking apart. The fault is spreading, and I would call it a full spread across from the plate boundary at Iran all the way back down to the coast. And we'll just call it a plate boundary from now on. The Anatolian Fault is now the Anatolian Plate Boundary, just like the San Andreas Fault is the plate boundary for the Pacific and the North American Plate. It just isn't marked on the USGS map. Let me show you. Let's go over to Turkey and show you what the USGS has marked for a plate boundary across Turkey. The spot that broke? Nothing. It's the only spot on the planet where they really don't have a connection. You could arguably say down here in Indonesia they need to have a connection going across, but it's like 2 spots on the planet where they don't have a connecting point going across, and it's between plates, and one of them is here. So this is the connection point between the African plate. It would mean the African plate is connecting across to meet over across what is the Arabian plate? What's the name of the Arabian plate? I need to look it up and memorize. It doesn't matter. That it's cracking across the north side of Saudi Arabia. Or Syria, I mean. The whole plate, though. The breakage that took place, all the earthquakes that accompany along with it, is just a sign that the plate boundary is formed there. Now, they don't have anything marked, but do we need to have them have it marked when you've got this on the screen of the current earthquakes in the last day? 2 days? You look at the whole week, and it's insane. It goes all the way across. They're not even reporting the quakes in many instances because I guess they've moved on reporting some of the quakes from the USGS site. All right, now, I said I struck out last week. What happened last week? Well, I found out some new information. I did. Let's go look up the earthquake over here to the west. Let's go put it in on Google Earth and see what's there. Now, when I saw the earthquakes over to the west, I didn't look them up. You could say I was lazy. I just Didn't bother to look it up to go see what was there. Here, let's zoom in and show you. Do you see this? So we spread over to the west. Why? Well, let's go. Before I show you the spot here, let's go back to the USGS map. So we spread from Gaziantep, which is right down here. See Gaziantep? And the other 7 struck north right up here at the Kahramanmaras. Sorry, guys. Look, I'm from the Midwest United States. I'm trying, okay? The Kahramanmaras. I can't say it, okay? Anyway, we spread over to the west. Yeah, I got your attention now. Please, listen. We spread over to the west. Why? What did we spread over to? My lazy ass didn't look it up, and then now look what we see where we spread to. Let me read you the information on this from the Smithsonian Volcanism Institute, or Smithsonian Institution and Volcanism Program. The massive eroded stratovolcano, the Erciyesdagi, at the northern end of the Sultan Saliji. Is that like part Italian? Basin at the central Anatolia covers an area of about 1,300 square kilometers. It's a massive volcano. And we spread over to it. Had no idea it was there. What's our eruptive history? No big deal, guys. The last eruption was in the year 253. So what do you think? 2,000 years ago? And then the last eruption before that was 7,000 BC. 9,000 years ago. I suppose there were some cavemen walking around and there were icebergs on the, you have the saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoth walking around. It hasn't erupted in forever. Let's just put it that way. So, lazy me didn't realize that we have spread over to a volcanic location where Mother Nature has created its own perforation points. It's created breaks in the plate here in the past, and now our seismic is reaching over to it, to the west. So why did I flop? Well, I was looking over to the east first for the wave to come in. I hadn't realized that the area to the west, fully volcanic, marked with the only volcanoes in central or pretty much all of Turkey. You get over to the east and we're right along the border. So the only volcanic group in central Turkey we spread over to. And how is it that no one noticed this? Where's the videos? Where's the professionals? We spread over to a volcanic field from the biggest earthquake in 20 years in Turkey. And I have to go, because of my own laziness, I have to go find out on my own? And apparently everyone else is slightly lazy too. Professionals, I mean. I don't expect average Joes to go have the volcano place marks on Google Earth to know where to look. Anyway, so now I have an answer. Why did we not break over to the east? Why did we break 90 to the west? Well, the volcano there might have something to do with it. Does it mean the volcano is going to erupt? No. It's a sign that Mother Nature is providing a way for this wave to reach out over to the west. Okay? Now, today, a new outbreak took place. Over to the west, over at the west side of Turkey, we all of a sudden started to swarm. And at the same time we started to swarm at Turkey, up in northeast Italy, we also moved with the exact same size movement as Turkey. They were within hours of each other. Let me show you what really both moved. So, all the way up here in northeast Italy, next to Slovenia, right at the border, do you see our red line? It goes right up there, right? Now, we follow the red line back down to the south, and we go back up and we make a U-shaped bend up into the south part of the Aegean Sea, which is, let me zoom in on that. This is the Aegean Sea in between Greece and Turkey. And right here, right where the W comes in and up to the north, on the north side of it, swarm. Swarming there now. We go up and up in, and we get an outbreak up here, same size. So all of a sudden, today, we started to move over to the west, here and here. Now, I think that means the wave that we've been talking about this whole update is spreading. It's spreading up into Italy now. Finally, after 2.5 to 3 weeks of breaking back and forth, it looks like the swarming is the first sign of that wave reaching up to the north. So it's coming out of Turkey, broke over at the volcano. We waited a few days. Now here we are. We're swarming over here in western Turkey, and we're getting hit up here in Italy. And Italy's seismic activity has taken a dramatic step up in the past several days. We got multiple 5s breaking out in Italy. Well, 4.9s. Multiple 4.9s. They downgraded each one to 4.4, 4.3, 4.2, 4.1. They were all 5s to begin with. Caused damage over in Italy. Not major damage, but a fair amount. Can I show you guys something really quick? Speaking of Turkey, I want everybody to look at the screen right now, if you have the ability to look at the screen. I'll describe it for you in case you can't see the screen. But going over to my community page, and we're going to go to a post I made about an hour ago. And it says, M4.8 earthquake, ... And here's what I said. Looks more like a M6 in my opinion, but my opinion doesn't replace the official number, of course. So let's go look at this 4.8 earthquake that just hit today in Turkey and just go see how big it is. Let's see what a 4.8 kind of can do. Wow! That's a pretty significant 4.8, wouldn't you say? Now, let's hold on. Before you think that might just be weak shelving of some kind, let's watch the rest of this so you can see and you can decide for yourself if you think that this might be a slightly larger earthquake than 4.8. Oh, well, here, watch the truck. Wow. You guys see a lot of 4.8s doing that kind of movement? How about out in California? Hey, let's go forward a little bit more and see what kind of damage it caused in people's houses. Hold on. Nothing big. Just broken walls and knocked down. Look at the cracking going on there. A 4.8. Look at this next one. Whole buildings decimated, basically. Or destroyed. I mean, you're going to have to demolish those buildings. Right? Look at the rack. Look at the shelving in the racks. This is in a factory. Causing power outages. Watch that. See that? Power outages. I don't know. Seems a little hefty for a 4-point-something earthquake. Let's carry on. Here, hold on. There's more. Watch this. Look at the concrete beams. Look at that. I mean, I for the life of me, guys, I don't know what to tell you about the size of the quakes. I'm just here reporting on them. But when I see stuff like this, it makes me think that the magnitudes are being underreported. Maybe to kind of calm the public so you don't see another 6, Out of sight, out of mind. I mean, you feel it, but you go check the feed and you're like, oh, it's just a 4.8. Oh, but that was today. And again, that's my opinion on it. It's my opinion. My opinion does not replace the official number of 4.8. But where did the 4.8 hit? Let's go back and take a look one more time. There it is. Right there. At the volcano. So, I have to mention it. I have to mention it. Same like within Italy. I have to talk about Norcia was hit. 4.9. We warned them for a 5 to a 5.5. And what came in? A 4.9, a series of 4.9s, not just one. So the other earthquake isn't on the feed because the USGS chose to ignore it. USGS is omitting 4.9s in Europe and downgrading to be beyond measure. Let's recap. I know this is a lot of mind-numbing information, but you'll be able to get your head around it in about 2 seconds. Deep earthquakes are hammering in on the underside of the plate in the West Pacific. That standing wave that I showed you, spreading out through the tank. One more time, let's go take a look. Hammering in from the underside of the plate. Then, just imagine that hammering action each time is creating a wave, and that wave is spreading down through the wave tank. And the wave tank is the USGS plate boundary map, which I've showed you a whole bunch of times, which is containing the wave, the red lines. So coming up into the tank, and then the tank is spreading out and across over to the west, to the north, and over to the United States as well, going up and around the bend of the tank. Now, every bend we go around, we get it reflected back into itself. You see it. And that's where our quakes are. It's no exaggeration to say that. So it spreads out over to Europe, and over to Europe we go. Today they were hit by something, I'm going to say it, bigger than 4.8. Over to the west, we got a new swarm in western Turkey, and then up the plate boundary into Italy. There's a halfway point between Italy and Turkey. And that's right down in here on the coast of Greece. So it looks like a new significant sized earthquake is about to break out in southwest Greece. I almost said southeast Italy, but I would warn right here at the Ionia range again. And it could get big. It could go up above 6.0 in the next several days. So if you live in Greece, or if you know anybody in the area from Albania over to Bulgaria, up into Montenegro, as far west, northwest as Bosnia, and as far west as Sicily, South Italy, going to have to watch here for a significant size quake in the next week. Now, I have another warning going. This is going for South Italy, down at Campobasso, and it could go up to 4.9, maybe even bigger. So another 4.9 due down at Campobasso, but that's separate. That's from the previous deep earthquake, the movement that we're expecting that should happen in the next couple days. The Campobasso area should get hit. But over the next week, we have to watch right here. Okay? Get ready. Don't be scared. You need to be prepared. Same for people down in New Zealand. I mean, I know you're earthquake, you're prone and you're ready, right? Like you're used to it. 5.5 is enough to knock things. Well, hold on. I stand corrected. Hold on. A 5.5, right? Yeah, no. But a 4.8 is enough to totally take out all your shit. Oh, I'm sorry. I said the S word. Ugh. Well, kids, the way it works is on the job site, sometimes you're going to hear people who you don't know swear. It doesn't mean you should. It means that they are actually of a limited intellect, like me. And they can't find the right words to express their frustration. Cut them some slack sometimes when it gets real stressful. Let's go over across, before we get into the United States, talk about the same-sized earthquakes over across the opposite side of the plate, over where the arrows are pointing, both north and south. And when I say the same-sized earthquakes, I mean it 5, 5.1, 5.2 to 5.4. And over in the West Pacific, we're dealing 5, 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. So what's the difference? Nothing. They're the exact same-sized earthquakes on both sides of the plate. Now, hold on a second. Let's go over and take a look. Both sides of what plate? This is the Pacific plate. But the 5, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 happens all the way going over adjacent on the Indo-Australian plate. And the 5, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 goes over across the Nazca plate over into South America. So, really, it's adjacent plates to the Pacific. It's spreading out that far. The wave, one more time. This wave is going through the plates. Whoa, hold on. I didn't realize audio was on this. This wave is going through the plates. Well, this is a separate part of the video. And as it goes through, it's trying to go around to the easiest point where it can come up. It's the best way I can put it. It's coming up from down below, and then it vibrates up and through the plates. And then we see the same size quakes, the wave, appear on one side of the plate as it goes out to the other side. And it's affecting the adjacent plates. This is the Cocos plate up off Central America and the Nazca plate down to the south. It's straight up going through them to the other side of them and dropping off the quakes where the wave is making the impact. And the wave is coming up from that deep earthquake activity right in the middle of the whole thing. To see the deep earthquake activity, we have to almost look from a world away, which is pretty weird in its own right. So, South America, north side of South America, 5, 5.1, and a 5.3 to 5.4. Going over, following our arrows perfectly around the outside edge of South America. I'm going to show you the Earth in a way you probably don't ever look at it. We're going to go look, The best way to look at it would be on some kind of NASA map that's flat. People are asking me if I'm a flat earther. No. I'm much more strange than that. I'm a no-earther, man. It's Matrix, brother. No, don't hold me to that either. I'm the lawnmower man. I'm in my own Matrix. Now, going around the north side of South America and the south side of South America, it almost looks like flowing molasses or landslides that have gone around each side of South America, right? So on the north side, now we get up here, we're going to look at it, and you'll see there's a bunch of volcanoes marked in a crescent shape. Now, this is a 20,000-foot drop-off. We go down 18,000, 19,000, and 20,000 feet down. We go from here down. Looks like a right angle, doesn't it? Looks like a harbor that's been carved there a long time ago. That could have never been done. Now, down here to the south, look, a crescent of volcanoes and another 20,000-foot high drop-off. So it's flowing around South America. What's flowing around South America? The wave. This wave. And this wave that's being generated down below over here is spreading out and going around South America. Like it's a giant rock in a river. And out in front of it is where it's breaking, to the north side and to the south side. Now on the north side, we have the Galapagos. On the south side, we have Easter Island. You don't really see Easter Island's more a little bit out here. There it is. Rapa Nui. Looks like a triangle, does it? Hold on. Let's go take a look. There it is, right out here. Rapa Nui. It is a giant triangle. What are the chances of that? It's got to be chance. It's pointing to the west. Now, Rapa Nui out there is right along the plate boundary. And the wave is coming across and reaching to the plate boundary, and then it follows it down into the southern tip of South America. And look, going down south, boom, right where it comes down to. You see it's a stair-step fracture zone that comes down to here. Now I got my big arrow pointing in just on the north side, because in between the two, that's where our impact happens. And we're going to see a new earthquake break out here between this cluster to the south and the cluster to the north. The halfway point between the two is somewhere right in here, which is one of the more famous earthquake zones on the planet. So if we've got a wave coming in down south, and we've got a wave going in up north, and we're going to break on the north side here, and we're already broken up here, I just showed it to you. In between those two, a middle point exists, and this is the third spot to watch in South America, which is right here, where both sets of rings overlap at South Peru. We have Sabancaya volcano there as well, but we watch all three spots. The north spot already broke, south spot's going to break, and the middle point between the two will break. Then we go around the outside edge. Let's go back to good old Google Earth and turn the Earth sideways again. So I just showed it to you. We're going to break down here. We're going to break. We've already broken up here, and we're going to break in the middle. It's going to go around the outside edge, and that means the Caribbean. This is Puerto Rico over here and Haiti, Dominican Republic. And it means down here at the South Sandwich Islands, where next to nobody supposedly lives. I say supposedly because there could be people there. Anyway, South Sandwich is going to get hit, and north side up here. Now, the north side, we can actually determine our area to watch, which is, well, hold on. Yeah, look, it's a hot mess of earthquakes along the south side of Puerto Rico and the north side onto the ocean, deep ocean trench. What would you say the triangulated point between all these are? What's the middle between all these quakes? Somewhere here on the north side of Puerto Rico. So on the northeast side of Puerto Rico, I would watch for a new outbreak to take place as well. Now, the size of the earthquakes should be above 5.4. So 5.4 plus 5.0 equals 5.5. Down to the south, we don't have any 5s yet. So I'm going to have to, again, calculate that we're going to be seeing the same size of earthquakes down to the south. If they're any bigger, it will be bigger as well. But then we'd look down here to South Sandwich for that 5.5 or greater quake. Just going on what the current quakes are now for the magnitude, I mean. Now, we got to talk about this. Back to the United States. Finally, we get to the U.S. Now, many people who here are new wait for the United States update. And I appreciate that, guys. You have to wait for the United States update because the flow of energy goes everywhere else first, and it comes up and around into Alaska and then down into the United States last. And we tend to get the flow last. After everybody else starts to see this big outbreak, if it's big enough and it comes up through Japan, goes across Kamchatka, goes up into the North American Craton. You like that? The North American Craton flows in from the northwest, and we tend to see the same sized earthquakes that break out in the Pacific Northwest come down into the United States, following the edge of the Craton. Craton stands for Kratos, Greek for strong like ox. Okay, so it's on the Craton. We get the same sized earthquakes starting up in Alaska. And what did we see up in Alaska starting 2 days ago? A swarm outbreak going up to 4.3 next to Adak, Alaska, and the volcanoes there. Now, I didn't know the name of the volcano there. I actually had to go look it up to go find out. Let's go up to Alaska and show everybody why we're swarming in Central Aleutian Island chain. So here's the Central Aleutians. Adak, Alaska is right here. No, that's Sitkin. Oh, God. Do I need to search this? I thought I knew where Adak, Alaska was. Adak. Huh. My recent search is in there. Close. There it is. So I did get it right. So Adak Island right there. On the north side, we have Moffat Volcano and Agadak. Neither has erupted in a long, long time. This is where the X-band radar ship is stationed at. Do you know about the X-band radar ship? There it is. The giant floating platform. Look at this thing. It's multiple oil derricks put together, or oil platforms put together on barges. And then that's an X-band radar with other smaller radars on all perimeters. It's used for missile defense. I saw this thing when it was up in the port up in Seattle a long time ago. Back in 2011, I drove across the country taking radiation readings. Look at the staircases going up this thing. These are regular like size staircases, just so you know like how big it is. It's huge. And it's stationed normally up here. There's no port, as far as I know, on Adak that they just float this thing around up here. I went around the outside edge of this, and I couldn't find any noticeable ports of any kind. So if it's stationed up here... Oh, wait. Oh, never mind. Hey, hold on. This wasn't here in the last search. When is this imagery updated? It says 2013 is when it was in there. You guys were live with me when I searched all the way around the outside edge of this island in particular. We looked at the volcanoes. We looked at Sitkin. We looked at it all. And there was nothing there. Now we can see there's a giant base there. I wonder if they just needed to make that public. That's really weird. Do I have historical imagery turned on? No, now it's on. Wow. Okay, I did not have historical imagery turned on. That is a recent update. All right, anyway. Well, there is a base there. That makes more sense. I was like, why are they not... How could they just float around up there with that damn thing? They have a full support apparatus. Giant missile defense base. Could also use it for weather modification, I suppose. It's possible. Crossing beam, scalar, that kind of thing. Long story on a lot of science stuff that you wouldn't care about. Let's just put it this way. Don't cross the beams unless you want excitement at a distance. Going up into Alaska, so we got the same size movement. 4.6, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5. Then a new 4.3 and 4.2 struck off the coast of the United States. Coast of the United States. Craton. Right on it, along the edge. Then, edge of the craton got hit, Colorado, by the same sized earthquake that struck out off the West Coast a day later. So let's just recap. Is your mind numb by all this information? 4 point something coming into the system. 4 point something striking off the coast first out at the Juan de Fuca. Let me show you where it hit, by the way. I forgot to show that to you. Out here on the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, 4.3. Then a 4.3 on the edge of the craton, interior of the plate. Same sized earthquakes going across the whole mass. No loss of energy. 4.3 wave, this wave, equal to 4.3, spreading across the whole plate. Following it like it's a tank. Following it like it's a wave guide, guiding the wave. Now, so what's in southern Colorado? I mean, the craton edge is there, but there's something else there. There's a reason that this wave was attracted to this spot in Colorado, as opposed to going down to Texas and at the bend of the plate. Why did it break at this point? Why was it attracted to this spot in Colorado? Why didn't it bypass Colorado, go down to Texas at the bend, and break at the bend like the rest of the planet does? Well, first of all, here's Colorado. Let me turn on our borders and labels. And I've got a bunch of gobbledygook on here, everything from volcanoes to oil wells. Let's turn them all off. There's the earthquake epicenter. Here's southern Colorado. Here is the craton diagram. One more time, Colorado on the rusty brownish portion, going down to the south, just north of Texas. So what's there? New viewers, pay attention now. Take a look at the screen. There's a bunch of little square pads, dots in the ground. You might think that they're camping sites or houses of some kind. But when you zoom in, you start to find out at each spot there's an oil well, an apparatus, and a pipeline that connects between spots. And they go all over the place here. Every one of these is a different oil and gas well. Well, hold on. There's a house being built right next to a frack pond. Now, I can get a better image on this. We go just south of the border. Here's the border with New Mexico. And the pumping operation goes down through the mountains. This is all oil and gas. These ponds, they will actually collect rainwater and snow melt and so forth in the pond. Take the water, mix it with toxic chemicals, and put it down into the ground. It's called wastewater disposal. They take good water, make it wastewater, and put it into the ground. Now, down here just to the south of the border, New Mexico doesn't have any regulations about putting sheds around their jacks and pumps, so you can actually see the shadow of the jack of the pump of the oil well there. I mean, you don't see that in Colorado because they build little sheds around them to protect them from the environment and vandalism, I suppose. Anyway, that's why we're getting hit in southern Colorado by the same sized earthquake that started out off the West Coast. That wave dropped off the 4 off the West Coast and the 4 down in Colorado. Next stop is a 4 on the new Madrid seismic zone, which should be pretty rare. Only happens maybe a couple times a year at the most. Should be striking right down here. I'm going to warn everybody from eastern Illinois at the Indiana border all the way over west towards St. Louis and south to the New Madrid town itself. And in the middle, you've got Little Cairo. You've got the mounds. You've got all that stuff right in there. Anyway, this is the Wabash Valley seismic zone that goes over into Ohio and meets up with the New Madrid. Let me show you. You can see it actually physically on the map here in the United States. Let me turn off all our borders and labels. Just remember, this is Missouri right here. Here's the lowercase cursive N shape bend of the New Madrid seismic zone, so you can always remember the New Madrid looks like a letter N, comes out of Arkansas, goes up to southern Illinois, and then back down to the south. And then it makes a U-shaped bend and goes up the East Coast, of course. Now, that matches this perfect. The craton. One more time. Craton. The earthquakes go around, and now this is the Wabash Valley seismic zone, spreading out with foothills and mountains up into Ohio. And we're going to watch right in here where the two meet. Let's turn our borders and labels back on now. Right in here. And guess what that is? Here is the town of New Madrid. Oh, I said Cairo, right? There's Sikeston. Here's the town of New Madrid. I mentioned the Indian mounds and all that good stuff. You guys can look that up if you want to. There's a lot of weird stuff down in here. And when I say a lot of weird stuff, these are foothills, by the way, in case you don't know. 6x9 in a certain shape. These are foothills now. Supposed foothills. Town of New Madrid, Starford. Okay, so recapping. We're going to watch there for a new 4.3. Mid-range to low end 4 to strike. Then we'll watch the East Coast up to the northeast, right at the Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York border region. Southeast Canada. Here's Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Southeast Canada. Watch all three both locations, We've already seen the two get hit out west. It's going to go across the Craton over to the east. And now, for my West Coast viewers, let's go take a look at the earthquakes out off the West Coast and along the West Coast. Try and figure out what's going to be happening on the West Coast of the United States. This is the hardest location to forecast because, first, it's the end of the river. We don't know fully how much is going to reach across the plates all the way to the United States. Will it drop off more along the way? Will it go across the Craton edge down to the south? Secondly, I don't feel like I'm getting a good seismic report of the earthquakes coming in from the northwest to begin with. I've been very, very specific about that. I haven't been, I don't keep it a secret. I think that there's a lack of reporting of earthquakes off the coast. So that gives us it doesn't let us know. It's like not knowing the weather blowing in from out off the ocean. You only have what's on land. And so you can only make do with what you see coming in on shore kind of thing. Okay? That's what it's like with the seismic not being reported for the most part off the coast. But we do have a 4 reported off the coast, which lets us know Northern California is imminently due for something in the mid-range 4 level. Now, I told everybody to watch for mid-range 5 level up here. But now that we see it's mid-range 4s coming in, is that accurate? I'll go with it. Mid-range 4 struck down in Colorado. Mid-range 4 is going to be coming in here to Northern California. I'll de-elevate my warning, which I never do. I'll de-elevate it from 5.5 down to 4.5. But we're not changing the location at all. Should strike in Northern California. Should be imminently coming. And anytime above a 4.5 strikes anyways, it's enough to knock things off shelves and so forth. Let's go down through Southern California. Also, tell people in California what to look for down south. First of all, line of earthquakes, the number of earthquakes here is low. So we have, let's just see, 1, 2, 3, 4 earthquakes marked on the creeping section. Is that, hold on, 0.0 and greater? Okay. We have 4 earthquakes marked on the creeping section of San Andreas. That's low. Way low, number-wise. And magnitude-wise, it's pretty low too. Just some 1s and a 2. I would look for the creeping section of the San Andreas to dramatically flare up around the same time in the next few days, so it shouldn't take very long. When this earthquake strikes on Northern California, 4.5, we should see the number of earthquakes just go through the roof coming down through California, and we'll see it repile back up down here. Right along the coast, most likely this time along the coast, out in the ocean, Santa Cruz Island, Catalina, out off the coast to the west. And it should be magnitude-wise. Again, I'm winging it on the magnitudes because I really think we're not getting the reports out off the coast. 4.5. 4.5. If I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. I'll be back on either way to beat myself up if I get it wrong. If I get it right, I don't know if I'll beat myself up that much. Hawaii. Okay, something happened in Hawaii that I thought was pretty interesting. First of all, the earthquake we were looking for last week did not happen. Instead, you got all that rain. Just a boatload of rain. From what I understand, it even created like a new hardened layer on top of Kilauea's lava lake for a while or something. I don't know if it's still there, but people were talking about that online. That's a lot of rain. Now, there was no seismic following that up. No 5.0 level activity, no 4s. I think this week we're going to be going at least as high as we go to the north. Oh, it's another spot where I need to issue a warning. Kamchatka, Russia may be seeing an extremely large earthquake this week. Could go up to 6.9. I don't think anybody up here cares. There's nobody that lives up here except for a few Russian bases, and that's all that's there. So 6.9 should be striking up there to the north. I'm basing that on last week's 6s that struck over the west, and we're going to see this progress up to the north. It's halfway point between the two sets of quakes, and it's the only spot that hasn't had a 7 in the last several weeks, if not months. We haven't had any movement up there. So I do have to issue the warning for a somewhat large earthquake to strike out in the middle of nowhere up here on the northwest side of the Pacific Plate where nobody's going to care. But when that hits, then we should see a noticeable increase back down here in Hawaii. But I'm not going to tell you to take shelter or plan or anything like to prepare until we see the earthquake up in Kamchatka this time. So when we see an earthquake up in Kamchatka, then I will issue the warning for Hawaii. Oh, man, what a full update this one is. It's a lot going on, but it's not that big right now. So average Joe doesn't get alarmed or concerned or even pay attention until we're talking about 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s. And today is the 12-year anniversary of the 9. But I'd like to remind every Joe out there and every longtime viewer, 12 years ago, when the 7.2 hit on the 9th, everybody ignored it except for me. People in Japan were earthquake ready. They said this at the time. We're earthquake ready. 7s are no problem. That's what they said. People got on TV and talked about it. They're like, oh, it's just another 7, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 days later, tens of thousands of people killed, entire infrastructure wiped out, nuclear plants exploding, and a nuclear plant really did explode. And that's it. I mean, that's what you get. I'm not saying they deserved it. I'm just saying that's what people get when they get complacent about large earthquake activity. Yeah, we're earthquake ready. You know, the people out in California kind of do it. They're like, it's just a 5. Get a hold of me when it's a 6 or greater, right? And you're like, okay, dude. You know, like it's like ignoring the weather. You can ignore the moderate-sized storms, but when a big storm comes, you probably won't be prepared for it because you've been so busy ignoring all the others. Oh, man. I want everyone to have an emergency plan, not just for earthquakes, but you need to have the kit. Change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, first aid kit, sanitation, medicine if you need it, and anything else, food and water. You're going to need to have that into a bag, something lightweight and easy to carry. The water is going to probably be the heaviest. I just got a message. People tell me I did not cover Australia. Azay! Let's go down and check it. So, a couple things happened down in Australia. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to skip you. It's been relatively quiet down in Australia. You got a series of small earthquakes that came in around the outside edge of the coasts, southwest and southeast. I don't know if you caught that. I would probably have to go turn on the Australian feed to see it. You can go check. Is it the Bureau of Meteorology who covers that? Anyway, Australia Geoscience, maybe? They'll have it. Multiple 2s went around the outside edge, down by Perth and over on the far east side. Is that Sydney over to the east? Damn it. Don't know if that's a way. This is the way you're supposed to look at Australia. Like this. Upside down. But let's go look at it on the way the map shows. Down to the east by southeast. What's the name of that big city down here? Somewhere over here. Wollongong? There's Sydney. Okay. Yeah, I got it right. All right. Hey. Not doing too shabby. So on the east side over here, we got 2s. On the west side over by Perth, we got 2s. Why? The plate is slightly moving on all sides. Why? Look to your north. See that? Let's go back to the USGS map. What's on the north side of Australia? The plate boundary. We're moving all along it. Over to the east, 6.9. Up on the north, 6.5, 6.7, and a deep 6.5. A 6 over here at Indonesia and a 6 up here at Philippines. Do you hear me? This is all this last week. One more time. A 6 in Indonesia, a 6 in Philippines, a deep 6.5 down below Solomon Islands, a 6.5 to 6.7 at Vanuatu, and a 6.9 to 7.0 over here on the east side, north of New Zealand. All this week. I wonder why you're moving on the outside edge of the actual plate. The whole plate is moving. So, what do we watch for? We're going to watch for a magnitude increase to take place across the center of the plate. You were at 2s. Now you're about to take the next step up. You're going to see several 3s break out across Australia over the next few days. It might get people's attention. Now hold on. Before I'm done, Melbourne, separately, down here to the south, down by Kangaroo Island, Tasmania, southeast tip of Australia. You have a separate warning going for another 3 days, based upon the deep 6.5 that happened all the way up here 7 days ago. A week ago, a deep 6.5 happened on the north side of the Indo-Australian plate, prompting me to warn the area north of New Zealand, Vanuatu, Indonesia, Philippines. All the areas that I just named that were hit, those were areas that we warned. We warned because of the deep quake. The final area where we warned that has not been hit yet is Melbourne, where the ring overlapped down to the south. And we warned you for up to 5-point-something level activity. Hasn't hit yet. So you're going to see 3s go around where all the 2s were, and that's not that big of a deal. But a 5 on land down by Melbourne, that's a big deal. And is that the name of the town? Yeah. That's 2 I got right. I'm becoming less of a bogan and more of an educated bogan. What do they call those? I'm a well-spoken bogan. I'm going to live out in the outback. You'll never see me again. I'm going to grow my hair out, wear a sleeveless shirt, drive a beat-up old pickup truck. Man, dreams, baby, dreams. All right. Let's get out of here. Let's go over and just tell everybody one more time. Over in Turkey, I struck out last week. But then today you get something that cracks buildings apart and they call it a 4? I don't know. Look, it wasn't a 7. 7s would have taken down buildings. So the good news is the spread is going out and away from the original quake. Where did it spread to? A freaking volcano. Here. And it doesn't mean the volcano is going to erupt, but that's why it's spread there. It's a weak point to the west, and the wave is trying to go to the west. How do I know it's trying to go to the west? It is going to the west. We got a breakout over here, swarm, and a breakout up here on the plate boundary up by Croatia. So the wave is going out now. That's good. It's been 3.5, almost 4 weeks of breaking across from Cyprus back all the way towards Iran, through Gaziantep in this general line. And I don't have any new information for you other than now that we're spreading west, hopefully you'll die out. The seismic will die out here, hopefully. If I'm wrong, we'll see a big flare-up. What happened? Why did it do that? I'm still trying to get my head around what happened over to the east, over at Tajikistan. I'll ultimately have an answer on Tajikistan as well, but we have to wait to see what happens in China, back behind it, where we're silent right now. It's like a flowing river, so to get an answer, all you have to wait for is for the river to flow downstream. And that's what I want average Joes who are watching right now to take away from this whole broadcast. We can watch the seismic now flow like a river that's flooding. We can somewhat plot the trajectory and flood stages for this seismic flow, now that we know where it's coming from. and where it's going to. Right? I mean, if you know where something's coming from, down below the plate here, and we know where it's going to, up, out, and away as far as it can, in all directions, following the cracks in the plates, then we can plot the cracks in the plates and the passage of that wave from point to point. And then when you start seeing the same sized earthquakes break off along the way, it's like watching a train go across the huge distance. Well, or watching a wave, standing wave. If these were train cars, equally spaced apart. Hope you understand. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. We could talk about very low frequency and ultra low frequency and standing waves and clapotis and whatever, clapotis, however you say it. We could talk about those things, but that just gets everybody numb, and I sound like Commander Data on Star Trek or something, or Spock trying to talk to you, and they're like, speak English, please. I'm like, I am. The standing wave clapotis of the very low frequency passing through the wave tank is... Everybody's like... I'm like, wake up, you damn Zoomer! Tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, I'm going to get out my John Deere. I'm going to go drive it down the road to the nearest teenager's house and just drive around outside and wake them up. Welcome to the world of being an adult, kid. Have a good afternoon, morning, evening, or night. How did the microphone sound in this update? Hey, by the way, if you're in chat on Twitch or on YouTube, if the microphone sounded good throughout the whole update, press 1. Press 1. I like to get everybody interactive in the chat. The best way to do it is this one thing. Anyway, I'll be looking out for that. You let me know. If it popped, scratched, or sounded weird or not normal, I'll have to go back and figure out something else to get. Let's hit save on this and go upload it to YouTube for a late night premiere into the morning of the 11th itself. Peace out, everybody.